Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're zooming in from. My name is Doug Bruhnke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. We have one of our special signature events we've been doing since our beginnings 6 years ago called Women in Global Leadership. When we first started this, the first session we did 6 years ago in Phoenix, we had 5 women speakers and we had about 100 attendees and only 5 were men. And our belief is that everybody needs to be at the table for the topic of not just kind of where we are and what the challenges are, but how do we get better? Whether it's in the US or Mexico or anywhere in the world. And so the next year, we had members of Global Chamber, mostly women, who were like saying, we got to get men here. So we did a extended marketing. They reached out to men and we still got the same distribution. Only 5 men showed up in the second year. And so we started to brainstorm in the third year and said, what if we get one very special man at the table? And subsequently, what we found out is we got almost half the audience as men. And so thank you, men. Thank you, women. Thank you, all of our speakers today. I'm going to be joined on stage as a moderator with the Barbara Coffey, who's been a past speaker of Global Chamber. She's the Economic Initiatives Director at City of Tucson. She is a leader, not just in Tucson, but in economic development. And congratulations on your success, Barbara, and looking forward to having a great dialogue today.
Thanks very much, Doug. I'm honored to be here. It's a great, esteemed panel that we have for everyone today.
Really pleased to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to have just a few minutes of brief introductions of our panel. They're very famous people. You can read their detailed bios in the event, but we would like to at least frame up each of the speakers. And Barbara, I think you're going to take on the mayor.
I will, absolutely. I'm honored, since I am pleased to work for the city of Tucson and pleased to be in partnership with her as she leads this great community. So Mayor Regina Romero, raised by immigrant farm workers in Somerton, Arizona. Mayor Romero is the youngest of 6 children and began breaking barriers early on as the first member of her family to vote and the first to graduate from college. In 2007, she became the first woman to represent Tucson's Ward 1 on the Tucson City Council. In 2019, she was elected Tucson mayor, becoming the first woman and first Latina mayor of Tucson, as well as the only Latina mayor in the 50 largest United States cities. She's a champion for issues related to climate change, affordable housing, infrastructure investment, immigrant and workers' rights, and education. So welcome to my mayor.
Thank you, Barbara. This event is a little bit different. This, I think, might be one of our first cross-metro meetups. We've had like a variety of women from around the world, but we've never done pick 2 chapters of Global Chamber. We're in 525 chapters around the world, and somehow this one evolved as Tucson, Southern Arizona, and Los Angeles, Southern California. And certainly there's a lot of synergy between them, other than even beyond the fact that they're right adjacent to each other. So 2 of our speakers today are based in Los Angeles. One is Marisela Caraballo DiRuggiero. She is a longtime supporter of what we're doing, and we really appreciate the membership and sponsorship of the Port of Los Angeles. She's the director of trade development, and it's been a really busy week, even a busy day for you, Marisela. You've had a very important trade event today. You have risen to the tops of Port of LA through lots of hard work and creativity and innovation, and I congratulate you on that. Also, the support that you provide to the exporting community and the importing community through the work at the port is very significant. Marisela is a leader in the support of export education in Southern California, including an event that just ended just 30 minutes ago. We really appreciate you participating today, especially given how busy the port is. It's going through record numbers of containers coming in and going out, in at least in combination. Coming in, it's extraordinary. The port is very busy. And so Marisela, thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on your successes.
Thank you, Doug, for that very warm welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, we're also had intended to do this event at the Mexican consulate in Tucson and have some folks live there and do this virtually, but because of COVID, we made this an entirely virtual event. So unfortunately, we're not present there except for Consul Rafael Barcelo. He is the Consul General for Mexico in Tucson. So sorry, Consul General, that we were not able to be there because of this pandemic, but you've agreed to introduce our next speaker, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Doug. We were very excited about that opportunity, but the important thing is that we get to dialogue today. And I'm very honored to introduce Ambassador Marcela Celorio. She is the Consul of Mexico in LA. She holds the highest rank in our diplomatic service. She is an expert in the relationship between Mexico and the United States with an impressive trajectory in the foreign service. And she is also an expert in trans-border diplomacy. So I am very happy to introduce my colleague and get to listen and to learn from them about the important topics that we are going to discuss today, and particularly of her leadership. Thank you so much.
You're very kind, my dear colleague, Consul Rafael Barceló. Definitely you are one of the rising stars in the Mexican diplomacy. And I feel, very, very proud that you introduced myself. Thank you so much.
The Mexican consulate in Tucson has a long history of leadership in the community and connectivity. And one of the key people that we've been working with for several years, Enrique, I believe his last day is a Friday. Is that true, Consul General? And we certainly wish him well. I believe he's going back to Mexico City.
That is correct. He's going back to capital, but he will be missed in Tucson, and he's been here for 7 years, and he's been a particularly cherished colleague of us, and working a lot in improving the relationships between Tucson and Mexico. Thank you.
We look forward to the collaboration ongoing. And Enrique, I know you're out there. We wish you all the best. He's been part of the advisory board for Global Chamber Tucson for a number of years. Our next keynote speaker is Allison Moore. She's the Vice President of the Fresh Produce Association of the Americas. Both California and Southern Arizona know agriculture, and both are very well connected to the agricultural industry in Mexico, and perhaps maybe Arizona is even greater. And one of the leaders in that, and that facilitates trade between Mexico and the U.S. on trade, is the Fresh Produce Association, largely connecting U.S. sourcers of food to the retail industry with produce from Mexico. So Allison, thank you so much for joining today. You're the vice president, and you've had a very distinguished career in trade. You've been at the Fresh Produce Association for a number of years, and you're involved with lots of different organizations in the community helping trade happen across borders. And so we really appreciate you adding your voice to this important discussion today.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
And then finally, our fifth speaker, 4 women and this one man, is Don Guerra. He's the owner and baker at Barrio Bread, Tucson. And there were a number of reasons why we thought Don would be important. Number one, he's just an extraordinary man. And I'd heard that from Felipe Garcia at a visit Tucson, and that's where Don is today. What I learned subsequently is that he's also now an investor in a restaurant. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more about that. And one of the things that intrigued me about his success is that it's basically, he's got a bakery that's perceived as the best in Arizona. And Felipe already mentioned to me, don't bother kind of going there and expecting to get bread on your first try, because they're so busy, they sell out so quickly, and it's really the best bread in not just the state of Arizona, but probably within the region and maybe across the United States. He learned to bake from his nana and from his mother, and his daughter is in his business. And so these are kind of other keys to from what we perceive as success, not just only in business, but understanding the role of women in business and how important it is that we look at every employee, every person in the workplace as equally as possible, and they bring what they bring. And there should not be any discrimination against them because of their gender or diversity. And so, Don, subsequently knowing now more about you, we really appreciate you participating today. I know this has been a very busy day, and feel free to, when it's time to speak, to share as much of that as you care to. But given how busy you are, extremely busy you are, thank you so much for taking the time, both you and Felipe, for hosting from Visit Tucson.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure to be here.
So I think, Barbara, we're now kind of in the stage of kicking off the session. Would you like to ask the first question? And what I would say in terms of framing up how we'll be running the meeting today is that Barbara will be asking most of the questions. We've got 3 or 4 questions that we've queued up. And those of you in the audience, please feel free to ask additional questions in the chat room. And if we have time, we'll either ask them or we'll modify our questions based on what you're asking along the way. So I turn over the next phase to Barbara. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Doug. And again, it's great to be here. So let's jump in. And I will remind you, maybe keep your remarks to 2 to 3 minutes a question, just so that we can hear all of your amazing viewpoints on this topic of leadership. So let's talk about that. What does great global leadership look like to you? And maybe think about it from your perspectives, if it's related to trade relations or your leadership during this pandemic. I'm going to start with Mayor Romero. Mayor, would you take us, kick us off?
Thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate it. I think global leadership is leadership, period, right? A great leader is a great leader, period. And, in my case, I didn't go, I wasn't, 10 years old and said, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to be the mayor of Tucson one day. I didn't. Thanks to my wonderful parents that taught me the value of hard work, the value of community, the value of honesty, the value of doing everything we possibly could for each other as a family and for others. They really stressed in our family, and me and in our family, helping other people and always showing up and doing something good, not just for yourselves, but for others. And so that really gave me the impetus as a child to carry it throughout my youth and into me being a young adult. And they always said, you can do something about unfair situations, and you should. If you can speak up for others, you should. And so that just took me from one place as a child to a young adult to wanting to do good for my community. So it's about showing up and doing something about the issues that you care about, and being truthful and honest. And then the rest is how the rest just happens. And you've got to be willing to step up and sometimes take it on the chin, and sometimes, hopefully most of the times, win on issues that represent not just yourself, but issues that actually will do the most good for the most people. And then, it's about doing the right thing, and that's what's important for me. And
Awesome.
putting yourself out there. So I think
Well,
that's what leadership is all about.
It's obvious, Mayor, you have stepped up to lead this community through a very difficult time. So that absolutely resonates, and I love your story. So let's hear from Consul General Celorio. I would love to hear your take on global leadership and what it means to you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. To answer your question, I'm going to refer to an example. When the pandemic hits, what I decided to do was to lead by example. And I protected my people. I sent away all my team to their homes, but I was the only one that came to the consulate because I wanted to send the message that no matter what, the consul was here. The chief of the mission was here and they could reach out. And it was very important because you have to see your people, and see your people has to do to become more interested about their lives, their families, their stresses, their happiness. So I think it's very important not just to lead by example, but also to be able to create, to form a wonderful team that believes in you. So I think that my team and I were very successful to face and to overcome these horrible times because we were united and we could see each other. We respect each other. And I was legitimized, to follow, to guide them, because I did what it was best for them, and they felt safe, and the community also.
That's fantastic. And again, the importance of the human in this entire, situation that we've been in. You exemplified that in your story, and that's we appreciate that. I'll turn to Don now in Tucson. Over at Visit Tucson. So again, thanks for joining us today. As a small business person, you have seen probably the worst of it, I'm going to suggest, but I'll let you tell us what that leadership, what it means to you, even having gone through this recent crisis.
Yeah, it's definitely been challenging, but I do believe, that everyone has to eat, and sharing knowledge and increasing collaboration is sustenance. Really, I feel like I'm in the business of exporting knowledge and not just a product. And this really, to me, is global leadership. If you want to gain on that leadership position, it's all about sharing information, knowledge, best practices with others. And I think that is an example I'm using for myself, because just being open, as a former educator, this is at the forefront of my business now, that sharing information and inspiring others can only come from sharing the best knowledge, the honest knowledge, to gain that support. And through that support, that's where leadership starts to happen, to really gain strength with your tribe and create believers in yourself and the mission behind what you're doing. So to me, it's really about exporting knowledge, and that's been the key to my business, to selling bread. Bread, it just happens to be the vehicle that I use to engage my community, to live healthier, to support each other and recognize each other and respect each other regardless of race, gender, any identifiers. But really, this to me is global leadership. Doing this, sharing knowledge, sharing information, best practices is the way to gain that leadership position and inspire others to follow, and also to lead other people and themselves in best possible ways.
Your passion comes through, and I think that's what makes you the perfect person to share. And so appreciate your willingness to share with others, and it helps all of us. So thank you. We'll go back to LA now. Let's talk to Marisela. Marisela, tell us a little bit about your take on global leadership.
Sure, thank you. And as tragic as this pandemic has been, for all of us globally. One thing that I am really proud to represent the Port of Los Angeles is that we came together not just as a port, but as an industry. At the very beginning, when supply chain was an issue, things were not coming in because countries in Asia shut down. PPE was not entering the United States as quickly as it needed, and our hospitals were in such high demand, and our skilled nursing facilities were in high demand. Our mayor and our executive director, along with 25 volunteers here at the port, I was one of those volunteers, and we started working with our contacts in the trade industry, trying to identify PPE that was being manufactured locally. We were identifying that PPE of those container shipments that were coming through our port and getting those containers expedited and out to the facilities that needed them. We started purchasing PPE so we can supply to not only our local hospitals in the city of Los Angeles, but throughout the region. And as of today, we still have that stock hold that we're using to supply our region's hospitals, nursing skilled facilities, and the local community organizations that needed that PPE so desperately. And at a time when our economy was taking a hit at the beginning of this pandemic, the global community came through. We had shippers, we had terminal operators, we had customers donating PPE to our region to get that PPE out to the folks in need. And to me, that was a beautiful thing to see that leadership come through during this pandemic.
Well, you served a critical function. And what I can tell from what you just shared is that you rolled up your sleeves and your entire team was behind you with that, and you got some things done. And that was critical at that moment in time when we didn't know what was around the corner. So thank you for that. So Allison, bring us home on the question of global leadership. Tell us your thoughts.
So I think if you look at global leadership through the lens of trade, which is what I do, a lot of it is people coming together from different sides of a border and bringing different resources, bringing different perspectives, bringing different expertise, and they're creating something that is greater than the sum of those individual parts. So if you look at the US, Mexico, and Canada, we've evolved to be the largest economic trading bloc in the world. And because of our relationships across those three borders, we have companies that have integrated supply chains from all three countries, and they're able to bring fresh produce to consumers year round. So they're taking the best resources from places that have the resources, the best knowledge, and creating something that is better than what we would be if we were alone. And I think the important thing to focus on is that it's people coming together with other people to help each other. And it's not just, I'm going to go and get mine and you're not getting yours. It's like, how can we build this up, all of us? And I think you can take that also and look at it in the lens of just leadership, right? And in terms of a company or a country, how do you bring together diverse resources? How do you bring together diversity in gender, diversity in culture, diversity in how you make decisions, and make something that's better than the whole? I think it's important for us to remember before we get too far down the line of questions is, looking at women in leadership, it's proven that when companies have higher percentage of women in executive positions, the bottom line does better for those companies. It's proven that when you have women at the table, that like Fortune 500 companies, for example, the University of Arizona did a study. I think it was the Eller School, where if you have more women at the table, if you have more diversity of thought, you're going to have more patents that you're putting forward because you're going to have more creative processes. Things like that, it's diversity of gender, diversity of ideas. It's more people at the table bringing something to the table to make the table bigger. So I think that's kind of how I would look at it.
I appreciate that. And I see you as a convener and certainly someone that leads the way in that. So let's start with you on this second question, because you were touching on this. When in your work life did you grasp that there were different standards maybe or expectations in treatment between men and women? And then what did you do about that, or how do you deal with that when you see it? Allison. Yeah.
I think a lot of it is convening. I mean, I feel like I've created a network of allies, both male, female, across the board, across borders to know, that I have a unique experience. I've been at the same company for 20 years. A lot of people have been at the same company for 5 minutes and then they move to something else, right? So I'm kind of a dinosaur, a 45-year-old dinosaur, but a dinosaur nonetheless. So, I have a history of, I continuously am trying to have people see me as, reliable, knowledgeable, that I do my due diligence to know what I'm talking about, that I'm able to know when I need to go out and find outside expertise to make decisions. So, in that way, I create allies, because when you have other allies with you that know what you can do and that know what your intent and purpose are, and when those allies know, hey, sometimes in a meeting, someone might not be listening to me because either I'm younger or I'm a female or whatever it happens to be. Sometimes when those allies know that happens, they can change the energy of those conversations. So it's not them stepping in to say, hey, you better listen to Allison. It's a more subtle way of just a continuous reminder that, we have somebody here that we can rely on that has expertise. And I think that's something that's important to do in your own network, but it's also important to encourage other people to use you as their network. So that's kind of how I handle making sure that we all have our seat at the table and that we're all being listened to.
Awesome. So I'll turn to Mayor Romero. When did you start to notice those differences, or what was your experience in situations like that?
Well, coming from a Mexican family, we're 5 sisters and 1 brother. And I usually tease my mom and tell her that her son is her son with a U, S-U-N. But you start noticing the differences between the expectations of young girls and young boys from an early age. But I agree with Allison. It's very wise what she says, that I kind of learned it on my own in a career in public service that is still dominated by males. I haven't gotten here on my own. I've had community allies, many of them males, that have validated my hard work and dedication to my work. And it's very important that our male allies and counterparts validate and support the ideas and the thoughts of young women that are working alongside them, or maybe even mentoring. I have a mentor that is a male mentor. And so those partnerships are very, very important. And I learned early on that sometimes, because I'm young, because I'm a woman, because I'm a Latina, many times what I say has to be validated by other partners and other allies. And I learned early on that I had to seek that, and that whether that partner or ally knew that what I was doing or not, I would, make my calls and say, hey, can you send a letter of support for this issue? Can you, as a leader in this community, call this person and ask them to vote yes on this? Or, you really try and find ways of bringing others along, because at the end of the day, you do need others to get things done. And in public service, as the mayor of Tucson, I'm not the queen of Tucson. I need my colleagues on the council to come along with me and vote with me. And so, you seek the help of others, and others' voices ratify the ideas that you want to put forward and proceed with in the community.
I appreciate that too. And I'm seeing some heads nodding. And so I see, this common thread of how do we build credibility? How do we get that validation? It's something sometimes that as women, we're still needing. Let's maybe look at your experience, Marisela, at the port or in your own background early on. Where did you begin to notice the differences or the challenges or different standards and expectations?
Sure, and kind of like how Allison and Mayor Romero mentioned, I think early on as women, we notice those differences. I think even before we enter our careers, we see it in just how the world kind of treats us. And I've been in the maritime industry for almost 20 years now. And it's a very different world today than it was 20 years ago. So I've seen the differences in how people react to women, but I remember my very first international port conference that I attended. You know, I was there representing the port. I was one of its leaders. And when I walked into a room to attend a meeting and was seated at the table, somebody from another port, obviously an older male, thought I was the help and didn't think of me as a leader and that I should be sitting at the table. So it was just kind of very interesting. You know, I handled it very diplomatically, reminded him who I was and why I was at the table. But I've seen the industry change, and it's still changing. And I think you just, like all of us women, you work hard, you prove yourself, you are inclusive. I think part of our leadership role when we're leading our areas, I tend to be very inclusive. I like to bring people into the mix. It isn't about me, it's about the organization and how we represent the organization. So at the end of the day, it's more about inclusivity and how you take that role and lead to it. And then you have to set the example to change the narrative of how you're viewed.
Great. I'm going to go to Consul General Celorio. I see you intently moving towards something that I think you're on the edge of your seat with. Tell us what it's like for you.
Well, you know, I love examples. And I definitely agree with Mayor Romero that, well, we have the same background, Latino background. And it started when I wanted to play soccer. And my parents say, well, you know, ladies don't do that. Well, remember that I am older than you all, but for me, it was pretty frustrating because I really wanted to play baseball, soccer, and I couldn't do it. And when I joined the Foreign Service, even though, you know, I am an attorney, they saw me and say, well, take notes. And they didn't see that I was able to negotiate. So it was a hard way to climb the ladder. But finally I did it, and but no hard feelings at all. On the contrary, I learned the lesson, and now I am a firm believer that we cannot do it by ourselves. We need men. We need them. Los vatos por las morras, as I say. I tropicalize the he for she. So, and I am very happy to have young, brilliant, intelligent, avant-garde, and decent diplomats as Consul Barceló.
That's great. That's great. I see his smile. So well, let's bring it home with Don on this, just to interesting, and let him hear all of your perspectives and maybe share about what it's like in his world and maybe with not only in his business, but other places that you're at. Don, what do you think about the relationships between men and women in the workplace environment and the business environment?
Oh, to me, it's incredibly important to have that balance. And I really like the way Allison talked about it. Diversity of thought and diversity of perspective. So for me, this is my success. I mean, I have women in my life, the most important people in my life, and the ones who provided the most inspiration to me are all women. Starting with my nana, my mom, to Carlota, my current business partner and partner chef at Barrio Bread, to my daughter. My daughter's earned her spot at Smith College. She's leaving in 10 days, and she's a drummer. One of 19 that were on the drum line, and she happened to be the section leader, and she's had her struggle, and we've talked about that as people respecting her as a female. But you know, for me, it's so inspiring to hear her talk about it and overcome those struggles and to gain her own perspective and to really fight for what's right. So to me, I can honestly say the most important people that provided the most inspiration are all women. And this is what I value in the workplace. To me, it is about balancing that perspective, that opinion, because we are looking at things in a different through a different lens. And I really couldn't do it without, firstly, this just getting into my current bakery, Barrio Bread, with the support of my wife, who at first was skeptical because I previously had bakeries and I was an educator and then back to bakery. And she said, oh, you have a stable job now, you're a TUSD, a wonderful position. However, the bread was my passion, and for her to accept that and recognize that and then to support me. But I really couldn't have made that leap of faith and entered back into the bakery world without her support. So a lot of respect and credit. But this is what I value in the workplace, is that balance and looking at things differently. And there are 3 women who have worked for me that I have mentored and currently mentoring another one to start their own businesses. And this is so part of the trade, is people want to come study and learn. And this is what I did. Of course, I learned from a man from Paris how to make my bread. And eventually I evolved and went to business school, wrote a business plan, and had a business myself. So I know how that goes. But to me, to be a mentor to these women now who just need certain components of developing a business, to me, is I'm just so excited to give that to them, whatever I can offer them. And then to see them really excel and to be these female led businesses, and to see the community embrace. We're all ready for that change. So this is really, to me, is what I value in the workplace, and sharing information and knowledge. What I talked about in the first question, this is really paramount to the success of my business, of my own personal success, but to, I think, the success of our community, is sharing that information and knowledge open and freely, so more people can benefit. Because in the end, we all benefit. If there are more bakeries, we all benefit. If there are more grains growing in our community, more farmers benefit. So this, to me, is just this growth cycle that I'm on, is let's give everyone that chance. And being Latino and having some of that challenges that comes with being Latino and being a minority, I see that. So to me, let's give everybody that opportunity, that free opportunity, regardless of race, gender, whatever the stereotype is. We're all smart people. We're all passionate people. We all want the same things. Let that be the driving force behind what we all will gain in the very end, which is, all success and enjoyment and pleasure and satisfaction and inspiration.
Great. No, I appreciate that as a father, as well as a business partner, and all the roles that you play. You have a great perspective. And so it kind of leads, this third question, I'm going to modify a bit, because we've had someone from the audience ask something that I thought was interesting. And, as you consider this new normal, how do what's the kind of leadership that needs to shape where we go as a world, as a community moving forward? And how does gender play a part in that? I mean, some of you have touched on that, how you want to, shape and mold the mindsets moving forward. But what will that look like in today's world? And you've seen that we've really been forced to face these issues of inequity and, right up front. So let's start, Marisela, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, I would say inspirational leadership. It's kind of where it's going. It's about being inclusive, bringing people into the fold. And this is a new normal. We're not going to go back to normal. I think, now with the ability to use Zoom, we've been able to meet with more people worldwide, globally. Before we would have to travel and it would take some time. But the way the technology is evolving, we're adapting to the new technology. We're using that new technology, how to communicate. with our partners around the world. And it's about inspiring others to come into the fold. So I would say inspirational leadership.
Allison, how about you?
So I've been thinking about this Zoom life, right, and what we look like now and how things go. And I mean, we've never been more flexible with when and where people can do their work. There are limitations. You have to bake the bread when you have to bake the bread, right? That has to happen. But there are also ways that you can encourage more diversity and involvement in the workplace by allowing a greater flexibility in when and where you work. Because if you think about women, a lot of them are primary caregivers for either their children or an elderly family member or a spouse. You know, if someone gets sick, they're the ones that jump in. They're the ones that do a lot of the things that have to happen in a home, like meet the plumber or what have you. And so that's hard to do when you have to say, you need to be here at 8 a.m. and you can leave this desk at 5. But we don't really have to work that way anymore. I think when you look at how do you bring in diverse people in diverse situations and with diverse circumstances, how do you see people as human, right? Understanding all that comes with being a human, and how do you bring them into the workforce so that they're bringing that dynamic, different perspective, the kinds of things that you need in your organization, and they can access that, they can be there, they can do that for you while still having the life that they also have to deal with. So, you know, I think for me, it's just about how do you bring people together now under new leadership? How do you give people the space to make the decisions and do the job that they have to do while also balancing, you know, life requirements, whether it's helping with your homeschooled kid or, you know, taking care of someone who's sick. So that's sort of where I see we're going to go more and more.
Right. We have the flexibility. We should honor that, give that where we can. Consul General Celorio, what do you think will make a difference in this new normal going forward?
Well, I think that digital leadership is a very important and very interesting subject. I am related to that because during the pandemic, what we did is to provide information and educate the community about a wide array of topics, domestic violence, how to get resources, how to pay your rent. If you were kicked out of your job, how to get a new one, talking about the rights of agricultural workers. So we were very effective, and I managed to have more than 150 interviews with different experts on each topic. And every week we have a doctor here on Tuesdays that provide us this information about how to face the pandemic, how to protect ourselves. But mainly I took the opportunity that I am in Los Angeles, and we start producing these programs, very informative programs, mainly with arts and culture. And now we have our own show in channel 22 Internacional. This is a cultural, Mexican cultural channel. And we address all these important issues to the community. So we are becoming a voice that informs and educates, because there is a lot of misinformation. So this is a wonderful opportunity to take, you know, a look at these new tools and social media and use it in the right way.
I agree with you. And I think it has enhanced our accessibility, right? Accessibility to each other, to more experts, to, you know, again, people that maybe we have not interacted with before. I'll go to Don. Don, talk about what's the new normal for you and how your leadership style plays into that. And unmute.
So my leadership style is entrepreneur. Making decisions quickly. This is what I've always loved about owning business. You know, being an entrepreneur started back just being 8 years old, you know, hustling in a barbershop. My dad had a barbershop. His you know, his slogan was free shoe shine with every haircut. So I was sweep the floors, shine those shoes, open the doors. And so, you know, to me, I got that taste for entrepreneurship and growing a business by making quick decisions on where you want to go. That's just part of being an entrepreneur. So I do enjoy what's happening in this current climate because it's really about making quick decisions. And what I love most about it is the opportunity to meet in this sort of forum to discuss and share information and dialogue and get different perspectives to build something bigger than myself. You know, I've been enjoying this the whole time in my career with Barrio Bread, with Barrio Grains now, with Barrio Charo. And it's really about networking, you know, and I can just say Felipe, for example. Sometimes I just say, Felipe, I need you. We need to go out and have a glass of wine. We need to talk. Through him, I'm meeting a lot of different people. Through opportunities like this, being with the mayor, like I'm networking and growing my social network, my professional network, but this has added strength to everything I'm doing because I'm trying to create something that's bigger than myself. I want something that's going to leave a legacy, that's something that's for community, by community. And it's through this sort of interface with people, this quick interface where we can, you know, come together quickly without a meeting spot and talk about it and problem solve and create something and go away ready to act. So to me, this is what I'm thirsty for. This is what I crave. This is sort of my finest moments here is getting together with people. And I do, and I will enjoy the time when we can do this face to face. But I look at this time as not really so much of a setback, but a learning opportunity and a chance to really use this like digital leadership platform to reach across the screen and keystroke, and I'm on the other side of the world talking to people and sharing best practices. And this is just part of what I've been doing the whole time with Barrio Bread is social media has allowed me to just connect worldwide. Because of that, I'm traveling the globe and teaching and learning and sharing. And so this is the inspiration that I have
That's
right
great.
now is sharing knowledge.
And every time you do that, every time, what I love about it, Don, is that every time your product and your information and your marketing goes out, it tells a story about Tucson. And I think that's what we're doing, all of our communities. Even the Consul General mentioned the television, the programming, the things that we're doing to educate. We're doing it far better than ever. So, Mayor, what do we need now for the new normal, for what you see? What does leadership need? How do we need to go forward?
Well, I want to attach myself to the comments done by all of my fellow panelists because they're very important points that each and every one of them put in front of us. And, you know, when there's a need, as the saying goes, I'm going to change the saying a little bit. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? So with the pandemic, we were all pushed to do things differently. And as Marisela said, this is the new normal. And actually, you know what? I like the possibility of being able to connect with Marisela and Consul General Celorio in LA, and Allison that I had not met, and Don that I hadn't seen, even though he's in Tucson, to be able to do it via Zoom, right? Via virtual, meeting each other and being able to say, hey, you know, Marisela, if you ever need to come to Tucson, you have a mayor that would love to be able to work with you, or with Allison, that is so important to the economy of the city of Tucson, the border and the connections that we have with our neighbors and our family in Mexico, and our businesses in Mexico. Unbelievable the type of work that we can do in a flexible setting. Saying that, you know, we have a lot of work to do as a policymaker, as a mom of two children, that I had to, as the mayor of the city of Tucson, had to take care of the residents of the city of Tucson during a pandemic and teach my kids at home and be the cafeteria lady for them. The pandemic really highlighted the inequities that still are part of our world, right? The inequities of what women had to go through this pandemic. We realized that we lost more jobs and had to leave our careers to take care of our family members, but that through this, virtually being able to have that flexibility, as Allison said, that we now know that we could have our careers and do it in a different setting. It doesn't have to be 9 to 5, and it doesn't have to be from an office. And so, but the inequities that we still have to work on, the pandemic highlighted it for us. So there's much more work to do for the equity that we need to see in terms of leadership and global leadership. And so it's about policy making and being able to think quickly. Here in the city of Tucson, we had to, from one day to the next, had to go from a structure in our city hall, in our city buildings, leave them and use this new technology to do our work from home. I had to lead from home in this pandemic. And so lots of work to do as a policymaker that I see, but in a new world where we can reach across states and across the world to be able to speak to each other and do this together. It's unbelievable how we can do things nowadays and network and do things together across the world.
Well, perfect segue. This last question, I'm just going to make it rapid fire so we can honor everyone's time. In 3 to 5 words, then, and I'll ask you, Mayor, to start us off. In 3 to 5 words, what do you see as the silver lining of the pandemic? What's that silver lining? It's been a tough year, so where's the positive? What do you think?
The positive, I would say, the connections that we could do virtually. That I think is the positive, that we were able to learn, and it's more than 3 to 5 words, but being able to speak to each other virtually from where we're at.
Great. How about you, Consul General? What's the silver lining?
Well, I think that the silver lining is that we become aware that we are the same. We human beings have a short memory. There's a world of light and shadows. And I think that this is very important, because a lot of people were saying we're going to be better and we're going to help each other. And that was not true. So for me, it's like we're the same, we're humans, but we have to be aware the positive things that we can do for the rest.
Great. I'll turn to Allison. Give us your 3 to 5 words, the silver lining of this tough year, this pandemic we've been through.
I can't use the words comfortable pants, I guess, as my answer. So, I think it's just innovation, new connections, and a new way forward.
Perfect. Marisela.
I would say we've learned a lot of love and kindness through the humanity, as Consul General Celorio mentioned, and Mayor Romero and Allison and Don. I mean, we've all seen it. We're networking. I could have a meeting with Mexico in the morning. I'm in Indonesia. My next Zoom meeting, then I'm in the UK, then I'm back to Japan, and then I'm in Canada, and then I'm in Singapore. And that was all in one day. So the connectivity that we've gained from this pandemic has shown us that there's more to life than just flying to see people in person, but it's also being able, the ability to talk to more people.
I love it. So Don, wrap us up. What are your 3 to 5 words?
I'd say building and strengthening community through acceptance and support.
Right. I didn't count those, but it sounded really concise.
6.
And I appreciate everyone's wisdom and insights. I've watched the chat. I can see that our audience also feels the same. They are inspired today by the words and thoughts that you've shared. So I thank you all for participating. It's been a great conversation. I was honored to be part, and I'll send it back to you, Doug.
Well, I totally agree. Very inspiring. First of all, I'd like to say, Barbara, you're amazing. That was really well moderated, just so professionally. And you really got, at the end of the day, we got some amazing information from the speakers. And a lot of that was the way you phrased it and the way you summarized it. So thank you for your leadership and all the work that you did today. I'm left with, especially the first question, but there was a string through all of this around action, around doing. And we don't have 5-6 people here that are sitting back worried and concerned, at least publicly. A lot of that I'm sure goes on behind the scenes, but you processed what's going on and you come back to that action. What can I do? How can I change things? How can we make progress? And so we look at something like the Cuomo situation, where there was a bullying situation that many of us have seen at workplaces. And, it happens in politics as well. And 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago, for sure, nothing ever would have been done. And so if there is a positive about things like that, it's that it can be caught and it can be stopped. In some cases, not enough cases. So I would say, to leave everyone kind of as next steps as well, you may be in a situation like that, whether you're a leader or whether you're someone in an organization. And there are reasons why you can't do what you exactly want to do, but there are things that you can do. And one of the ways, and going back to what the mayor talked about, is mentorship and having a network. And that's part of being part of the global tribe. Is these are problems that are really tough and many times. And so don't do it alone. Be surrounded by people that you know and trust in your community and within the global tribe. So whether you're in Tucson or LA or Myanmar or Tokyo or Accra, Ghana, these are situations that require more than just you. And so please feel free to reach out to the global tribe. Let's do business, but also let's create a world that's a better world. We're not there yet. We may never be there. We're always kind of on the journey. And so let's keep that journey going. Let's keep working together. And that's how we're going to solve this. The next 2 Women in Global Leadership events are September 30th, one in Salt Lake City with 4 amazing women again, and one man who is the former and retiring president of the University of Utah, Dr. David Pershing, who graduated from U of A. So there's a Tucson connection there for sure, but he became an adjunct professor of chemical engineering for me about 40 years ago, and he worked his way all the way through the university to become the president. And so he has a lot to say about this topic. And then the next month is Phoenix, and then we have a variety of other programs coming up in the future. Keynote speakers, you're all extraordinary, from the mayor to Allison and to Consul General and Don, and with especially all that you've done here in the last couple of weeks. And Marisela, just can't thank you enough for your support and collaboration, especially through these very, very busy times at the port. Thank you, Consul General Rafael Barcelo, for your support and collaboration as well. And we look forward to COVID-free times when we can do more events there at the consulate. And greetings to Enrique. Thank you again for your service to Tucson and to the country of Mexico and to the region and to cooperation, because again, it takes a village. And in our case, the village happens to be very global. Barbara, what do you think? Anything else to cover before we close down?
I think you've summed it up, and I just, again, appreciate the opportunity to be part, and I'm excited that, it looks like there is Consul General Celorio. Please, what's your thoughts?
I just want to thank you, all of you in Tucson. Thank you for thinking about us here in Los Angeles. And I want to ask Don if he's delivering to LA, and if he's not, we will wait for you here to open a business.
He can come to LA after he hits Nogales. So we'll just send him to you after he drops off here. That works.
I'm very protective of my Tucson businesses though, so I don't know. No, it's great. It's
Special deal
wonderful.
for everyone here. I'll ship you a box of bread, okay?
That's right. He shares, he said that. So it's been great. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, everybody. You have a good rest of your day. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you, everyone. What an honor.